calling out Todd Muller. Tēnā koe.
Tēnā koe e te tiamana e mihi atu ki a koe.
Kia ora, Todd.
Mr. Chair, I'd like just to spend a few moments talking about particularly the conservation partnerships, but if I can just acknowledge Mr. Chair, the Minister Nick Smith. I thought he spoke to the key messages that he spoke actually at the Select Committee around our reform agenda over the last few years and how effective that has been, from what we took over, MPS for Fresh Water, National Objectives Framework, EPA, a huge list of reform and of course funding initiatives to support that. But in particular, Mr. Chair, I'd like to spend a few moments just reflecting on the conservation partnerships that we now have in place and have had in place for a number of years and intend to continue to invest heavily in over the next 2 or 3 years. When these were introduced a few years ago under Nick Smith and Al Morrison's leadership as the CE, there was a typical reaction from the Labour and Green parties in particular, very anti, a typical ideological reaction from those who are seeing that conservation and business cannot work together. In fact, in their views, were very incompatible bedfellows. But these partnerships have proven that wrong. That philosophy that we were privatising the Department of Conservation, that private and public partnerships were evil, that conservation is simply the preserve of government, reflects a tired and captured ideology which in my view, Mr. Chairman, is holding them back, because these conservation partnerships that Minister Barry and Lou Sanson stepped us through in the Select Committee are successful and are working. And the reason they are successful and working is that they are partnering with people who are on the ground. They have the expertise of the Department of Conservation who are in the area, in the particular region, that understands the ecosystem pressures and can identify what the appropriate interventions are to get the best outcome. You have local community, be they iwi, be they local non-government partnerships who are energised and are passionate for their particular area, and that can be partnered with business in a way that delivers real benefit. It isn't a failed ideology of privatisation that gets barked at us from the other side. It is yet again an example of a pragmatic framework that is working, that is delivering, and I am very pleased to be able to be part of a government that supports that, and to hear from Minister Barry in terms of the various partnerships and how they are progressing. Mr. Chair, some of this is pretty personal to me because the Fonterra Living Water Program, when that was launched 2 years ago, I was part of that. And saw that being introduced in partnership with Fonterra and Department of Conservation. We have 5 areas across the country which are under pressure, having an immediate turnaround with the community and Fonterra and Department of Conservation working together to get a better ecosystem outcome. The same with Air New Zealand. There's a list of them, Mr. Chairman, and it is worth just reflecting on these conservation partnerships and how they are impacting across the country. From Air New Zealand's conservation partnership, initially focused on supporting the Kiwi, now broadened to great walks, marine reserves and supporting other coastal gems. Dulux New Zealand, obviously I've touched on Fonterra's partnership, Mr. Chair, Genesis Energy and their support in terms of the Whio recovery program. Minister Barry, of course, at the Select Committee spoke on the Kiwis for Kiwis program and the significant investment that we are putting in for that program. And the Maita Ten Takahei Reserve program is an example of that. And what is coming to being very clear for those who are involved in these partnerships, Mr. Chair, is that once you actually get like-minded people around a table that are particularly concerned about ensuring a better ecosystem outcome, and the businesses that are prepared to put their money and support and energy behind that, that over time as they work together on that particular program, other opportunities come from that. So a sense, Mr. Chairman, as the relationships become deeper, the community, DOC and the business have an established track record of being able to work together for effect, more opportunities get presented in front of that community to take up. And I want to reinforce that as an example of a public policy that is working, and it is working today, and it deserves ongoing support and credit, not the blind opposition based on ideology that we're hearing from the other side. Earlier on, we had Eugenie Sage talking about the fact that there was no new money in this budget for conservation. That is wrong. There's $11.2 million extra funding, Mr Chairman.